Well, class, on Friday, which we are in now, there are some real uh, closing points I want to point out here in this particular section. And then I want to maybe do somewhat of a reflection period. Okay? So basically, what I want to talk about here, and you can follow along with your books, is that we talked about groups forming, norming, storming, all of that. And now looking at barriers to effective groups, I believe on page 314 of your book. And certain types of processes and norms foster improved decision making and lead to successful outcomes for our groups. And I'm reading right from the book here. Psychological safety, conflict management, and interpersonal understanding help to improve performance, while other types of processes and norms foster poor decision making and serve as barriers to effective groups. Several barriers to effective groups exist. These include groupthink, common knowledge effect, peer pressure, polarization, and social loafing or free rider effect. So, one of the things I want to talk about first here on barriers to effective group decision making is groupthink. One of the things that Irving Janis points out, and as your book states, he was a psychologist interested in improving decisions in business and public policy settings. And he used the format of looking at some natural disasters, like the Space Shuttle Challenger explosion, the U.S. war in Vietnam, Kennedy's decision to invade the Bay of Pigs in Cuba. And he came to the conclusion that the groups advising the policymakers moved toward agreement and consensus first. And they didn't really have critical thinking involved in the process before they made those decisions. So there were a lot of political, there were perceived and real types of peer pressures among the groups, the military, and so forth. NASA, when it came to the Space Shuttle Challenger, JFK invading the Bay of Pigs in Cuba. The military did not like to sit back and wait and see what Khrushchev did. And they looked at Kennedy's waiting and persevering as a weakness rather than a threat, not really focusing on the real consequences. So they didn't have a lot of critical thinking. They just kind of wanted to go to the bottom line. So Janis called the situation where peer pressure stifles critical thinking and more toward consensus as groupthink. And groups that fall victim to groupthink share several characteristics. And you can see them on page 315. They're sharing an illusion that the group is invulnerable. So they become overconfident. It's more than self-efficacy, it's more of an egotistical type of feeling. And no matter what they decide, they're going to be successful. And the second thing is discrediting of opposing viewpoints of view. For example, right now, President Trump is trying to discredit all the scientists, saying this coronavirus is going to end a lot sooner than what they are saying, and will be back to normal in no time. He's looking at it as offering hope to people that they can get back to work, get the economy going, when in reality, until we figure out a way to combat this virus, none of that will take place. Justifying their action on questionable moral principles, such as the end justifying the means. Characterizing all who disagree with their position as evil. And censoring or ostracizing members of the group who do not conform to the dominant viewpoint. Sound familiar? Identifying someone in the group who will play the role of mind guard, a person who seeks to isolate the group from opposing opinions. And that type of groupthink is dangerous because it acts almost as an autocratic type of nationalism, where you're either on my side or you're not, my way or the highway. The other thing is known as the common knowledge effect, and that would interfere with group decision making. It basically describes the tendency of group members to share information that is already known by other members of the team rather than share information that is unique. So the bottom line is one lies, the other one swears by it, but there's no real facts to back up the data that's being presented. In other words, group members unknowingly hold back information that could contribute to the group because they're afraid of getting ostracized. But instead, they share information that is known by other members. Now, then there's peer pressure and polarization. Groups tend to make riskier or more conservative decisions than individuals working alone, and that is called the polarization effect. This is how peer pressure encourages decision making that leads to decisions that are much too risky. And when Solomon Asch conducted a classic study, he observed that when an individual group member feels pressured by other members of the group, okay, basically what they will do is they will conform. Again, not to get ostracized or to be on too much of an opposing point of view, because that peer pressure is people won't like me. And then social loafing and the free rider effect. On the social loafing, few members take responsibility when things go wrong, but take credit when things go right. And the free rider effect, individuals rely on group members to do the majority of the work, and they take a free ride to getting credit. So, obviously, every team wants to feel safe. And in wrapping this up for this particular chapter, I wanted to talk about psychological safety. And psychological safety is important, especially in globally dispersed groups, multinational organizations. People don't feel connected to the organization or the groups because they may be multinationals and they may be away from home and not be able to participate. Virtual teams are important now, especially with globalization. They use information through technology to share information. So this is basically all I am going to cover for this particular chapter, section. And now I will have a reflection period. Reflect on what I just did for about 10 minutes.